For nearly 2,000 years, the words of Jesus of Nazareth have been treated as matters of faith. To many, they were beautiful metaphors. To others, they were complex theological puzzles. But in the last few decades, something has changed. Deep beneath the dust of Jerusalem, under the heavy stones of Galilee, and within the ruins of forgotten synagogues, archaeology is speaking. The shovel is meeting the scripture. What if I told you that the most controversial claims Jesus ever made, claims that nearly cost him his life on the spot, have been physically validated by recent discoveries? In this documentary investigation, we are moving beyond the pulpit and into the excavation pit. We are going to examine 7 specific statements made by Jesus that skeptics once called historical impossibilities. From the exact location of a miraculous healing to the legal code that defined his trial, these are the 7 proofs that change everything we thought we knew about the historical Jesus. Our first discovery begins not in a temple, but in a place of deep water and deeper controversy. Statement number 1. Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam. For over a century, critics of the Gospel of John argued that the Pool of Siloam, as described in the Bible, was a literary invention. They claimed no such monumental pool existed in Jerusalem during the time of Jesus. They argued that a small, insignificant cistern discovered in the 19th century was the only Siloam available, and it didn't match the grand biblical description. But in 2004, a routine repair on a sewage pipe changed history forever. As workers dug, they stumbled upon massive stone steps. As archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority cleared the mud, a massive 5-tiered monumental pool emerged. It wasn't just a small pond. It was a grand structure, exactly where the Bible said it would be. But why does this matter so much? Because it proves that the author of the Gospels had intimate first-hand knowledge of Jerusalem's topography before its destruction in 70 AD. When Jesus told the blind man to walk to Siloam, he wasn't talking about a spiritual concept or a hidden metaphor. He was talking about a massive stone landmark that we can physically touch today. This discovery silenced decades of academic skepticism. To understand the scale of this, imagine a pool the size of 2 Olympic swimming pools, lined with grand stone staircases where thousands of pilgrims would gather. Archaeology shows us that this wasn't just a place to wash. It was a massive social and religious hub. The stones we see today still bear the marks of the chisels used by Herodian masons. When the blind man took his first steps toward this water, he wasn't walking through a quiet, deserted alley. He was navigating a bustling, loud, and magnificent architectural marvel. This level of detail in the Gospel of John, describing the exact location and the 5-tiered structure, is something only an eyewitness could have known. It changes our perspective from seeing the Bible as a collection of stories to seeing it as a precise historical record of a city that was lost to time. But Siloam was just the beginning. The next statement involves the very foundation of the temple, and a claim that was considered impossible by historians for centuries. Statement number 2, before Abraham was, I am. This is the statement that nearly got Jesus stoned. In our recent research, we explored the divine significance of this name, the Tetragrammaton, but archaeology has revealed the physical and legal context of this exact confrontation. Excavations around the southern wall of the Temple Mount, known as the Hulda Gates, have uncovered the very teaching steps where rabbis and prophets gathered to debate the law. It was here, surrounded by the massive multi-ton stones of Herod's temple, that Jesus claimed pre-existence. Skeptics used to say that the Jewish people of that time wouldn't have reacted so violently to a mere phrase. However, archaeological finds of first-century legal documents from the Judean desert, including fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, prove how strictly blasphemy was defined. To say "I am" in that specific context was not just a claim to divinity, it was a claim to be the architect of the very temple they were standing in. Archaeology shows us that the stones they picked up were likely the very debris of the ongoing construction of the Temple Mount, which leads us to the third proof, a statement about authority that was only understood after a discovery in the ruins of a town that was lost for centuries. Statement number 3, the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Where did Jesus get this authority? And where did he exercise it in public? For a long time, we had very few remains of first-century synagogues in Galilee. Some scholars even argued they didn't exist as described in the New Testament until much later. Then came 2009. In the town of Magdala, the home of Mary Magdalene, archaeologists found one of the most perfectly preserved first-century synagogues in the world. In the center of this room was the Magdala stone, a carved block representing the chariot of God and the menorah of the temple. This stone proves that the people of Galilee were deeply connected to the temple worship in Jerusalem. When Jesus stood in places like this and spoke with authority, he wasn't a wandering rebel in a vacuum. He was a recognized teacher in a highly organized, literate, and religious society. Archaeology has restored the dignity of the Galilean world, showing us that when Jesus claimed the authority to forgive sins, he was doing so in a place where people deeply understood the weight of that claim. But what about the men who judged him? Does history remember them too? Statement number 4. My kingdom is not of this world. For decades, many secular historians claimed that Pontius Pilate, the Roman prefect who interrogated Jesus, was a fictional character or a minor official whose role was exaggerated by early Christians. They argued that there was zero archaeological evidence of a man named Pilate in first-century Judea. That changed in 1961 in the coastal city of Caesarea Maritima. Archaeologists flipping over a limestone block in an ancient theater found an inscription that shook the academic world. It clearly read, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea. This stone didn't just prove Pilate existed, it proved he was exactly who the Gospels said he was, a high-ranking Roman official with the power of life and death, stationed in the Roman capital of the province. The Pilate stone is more than just a name on a rock. It is a window into the Roman administration of Judea. Notice the title used on the inscription, Praefectus. This is a specific military title that matches the Roman records of the era. For years, some scholars suggested the Bible was written centuries later by people who didn't understand Roman titles. But this stone, found in the debris of the Caesarea theater, proves the biblical authors were using the exact terminology of the first century. Pilate wasn't just a judge. He was a military commander, stationed in a fortress overlooking the sea. When we look at this stone today, we see the very link between the Roman Empire and the execution of Jesus. It is a cold, silent witness to the political pressure that led to the most famous trial in human history. When Jesus stood before Pilate and spoke about his kingdom, he wasn't talking to a ghost of history. He was standing before a man whose very name is now carved in stone for us to see. This discovery validates the entire legal and political setting of the Passion narrative. But if Pilate was real, what about the religious leader who pushed for the sentence? Statement number 5. You have said so, but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One. These words were spoken directly to Joseph Caiaphas, the high priest. For centuries, critics questioned if such a figure was a historical reality or a symbol of religious corruption. In 1990, while workers were building a water park in the Peace Forest of Jerusalem, they accidentally broke through the roof of a first-century burial cave. Inside, they found a magnificent, highly decorated limestone box, known as an ossuary. Carved into the side in Aramaic was the name, Yehoseph bar Caiapha, Joseph, son of Caiaphas. Inside were the actual physical remains of a 60-year-old man. Think about the magnitude of this. We have found the physical remains of the very man who presided over the trial of Jesus. Archaeology has literally pulled the villains and heroes of the Bible out of the pages of myth and into the reality of forensic science. When Jesus looked Caiaphas in the eye and spoke of the Son of Man, he was speaking to a man of flesh and blood, whose family tomb we have now uncovered. The historical accuracy of the characters surrounding Jesus is now beyond reasonable doubt. T3, statement number 6. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. The cross is the central symbol of Christianity today, but in the first century, it was a symbol of ultimate shame and Roman brutality. Skeptics often claim that the early followers of Jesus didn't actually worship him as God until much later, perhaps at the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century. Archaeology begs to differ. On the Palatine Hill in Rome, archaeologists discovered a piece of graffiti scratched into a wall, dating back to the late 1st or early 2nd century. It's known as the Alexamenos graffito. It depicts a man worshipping a figure with the head of a donkey on a cross. The caption rudely mocks, "Alexamenos worships his God." While it was meant as a cruel insult, it is the earliest surviving pictorial representation of the crucifixion. It proves that within decades of Jesus' death, even his enemies in Rome knew that his followers were worshiping a crucified man as the creator of the universe. This crude drawing validates that the statement of the cross and the worship of Christ as God was not a later invention. It was the explosive truth that was turning the Roman Empire upside down from the very beginning. Statement number 7. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, but they died. Jesus spoke these famous words in the synagogue at Capernaum. For years, visitors to the ruins of Capernaum saw a beautiful white limestone synagogue, but archaeologists knew it dated to the 4th century, much too late for Jesus. However, when they dug beneath the floor of that white synagogue, they found something breathtaking: the dark basalt foundations of an earlier 1st century synagogue. This is the exact floor where Jesus stood. This is the room where he looked at the crowd and claimed to be the sustenance for their souls. When you stand in Capernaum today, you aren't just standing in a holy place. You are standing on the physical evidence of his ministry. The black basalt stones of Capernaum are silent witnesses to the authority of his voice. The contrast between the white limestone of the upper synagogue and the black basalt of the foundation is one of the most powerful images in all of biblical archaeology. The white stone represents the later, more prosperous era, but the black stone, the volcanic rock of the Galilee, represents the humble, gritty reality of Jesus' daily ministry. This basalt floor was worn smooth by the sandals of thousands of people who came to hear a man who spoke unlike any other teacher. When Jesus claimed to be the bread of life in this room, the acoustics of the basalt walls would have carried his voice to every corner. We aren't just looking at a foundation, We are looking at the stage where the most radical claims of the New Testament were first delivered to a hungry crowd. Archaeology doesn't prove that Jesus is the Son of God. That remains a matter of faith. But what archaeology does prove is that the Gospels are not fairy tales or legends. They are eyewitness accounts of real people, in real places, facing real consequences. The 7 statements we examine today are no longer just stories. They are anchored in stone, lime, and history. The unseen Bible is being revealed, one discovery at a time. If these 7 archaeological discoveries have strengthened your faith or surprised you today, please let me know in the comments. Which of these proofs was the most shocking to you? Was it the pool found by accident, or the name of the high priest carved in stone? I read every single comment, and your support is what allows us to continue these investigations. If you found value in this documentary, subscribe to the Unseen Bible and click the bell icon